This episode is brought to you by HME Aaron's Fox. When it comes to fire apparatus, the industry right now is facing some big challenges. Higher cost, long delivery times, and uncertainty at every turn. But that's where HME Aaron's Fox stands apart. Built in the U.S. with a legacy that dates back for over a century, HME Aaron's Fox is redefining what departments can expect from their next rig. Their lineup of custom and commercial pumpers, tankers, and wildland trucks are designed with precision, craftsmanship, and purpose. And most importantly, they're available. While other manufacturers are quoting years out, HME continues to deliver trucks that are ready for service, bucking the national trend of the new normal. They've streamlined their process, focused on smart engineering, kept their builds affordable, reliable, and attainable for departments of every size. So if your department is tired of waiting and ready to put a new rig on the street, it's time to take a closer look at HME Aaron's Fox. Visit firetrucks.com to see what's ready to roll today and experience a company that's truly flipped the script on the fire apparatus industry. Larry DiCamillo, take two. Larry, can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, there you are. Nice to see you, sir. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely.
So you don't go away. I mean, you keep showing up on this show, and I guess it's me. I guess I keep inviting you back, but in all full transparency, I enjoy our conversations. It's fun because you're a smart guy. You actually know it. I think you know what you're talking about. So for me, yeah, no, this is good. This is good. So it keeps me on track and it keeps me educated. So what's new in your world, man? Some big news, right?
I retired August 29th, and so I am officially retired from the city of Stafford after a little over 35 years there, starting as a volunteer, all the way up through career fire chief. And I was happy to say that my assistant chief was just chosen 2 weeks ago, and he started 2 days ago as my successor as a fire chief, and Jose Magana. And I think that the department's in good hands, and I think that they're going to keep the trajectory that we had set. So, yeah, I'm excited for them.
You have always spoken well of your guys, your command staff, and you speak very highly of Stafford as a department, which for people listening, if they don't know, that's down in Texas. You're retired out of Houston. You were a volunteer in Stafford, and then after your retirement, you came up through and were the chief of department there for many years. And I know you made a lot of headway there along the way, but you always spoke very diligently about your people. And I guess it was shared vision, right? And how important is that, especially in the transition phase of this?
You know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot because I was fire chief for right at 20 years. Because I was doing that in Houston at the same time. And there was a lot of things I saw in the city of Houston I refused to replicate because I didn't like Ford as a line guy. But there were certain things that I did like, and vice versa. And you pick what you like and what you think the organization will support and will be successful with. And I think that, the shared vision you mentioned, I have a lot of great ideas. Some of them are realistic, some of them aren't realistic. And when I say I learned a lot because I used to come up with a policy on what I wanted us to do, and I would just write it, boom, shotgun it out. And then I'd have 6 or 7 guys who would come to me and say, hey, can we talk about this? I'm like, yeah. Well, what about this? What about that? And so I really had to hit the pause button on that. And that's one of the biggest things I learned is that I can walk around to all 3 shifts and visit all the stations and say, hey, we're going to do this. Any questions? Blah, blah, blah. But you need a force multiplier. So I reached out to those 6 or 7 people. Whenever we had a policy, I put a big water stamp on it that said draft, and I'd send it to them, and I'd say, pick it apart. And that would keep me from having to do these modifications to a policy that was a week or 2 old. Plus, you build in ambassadors for the message for the policy, because if they have a hand in it, then at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones out there answering the questions and advocating for it. And so, I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned.
But you had an open door, though, which
absolutely.
Some guys are writing policy, issuing policy, and they're not looking for feedback, and they're not willing to hear any type of pros or cons against what was just written and formed and pushed out, right? At least you had the open door to listen, which then changed your methodology and delivery, right?
Absolutely. And, now don't get me wrong, there were some things that you have to balance it with, yeah, that's a valid point, as opposed to, but this is something that from a
Yes.
procedural or administrative or a financial thing. And so you've got to draw those lines.
Right.
But no, it very much, a collaborative effort was far more fruitful than one of an authoritarian one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Well, I wonder about transition, right? Because for you, I mean, from the idea of retirement to retirement, it was not a long process for you, correct?
Well, see, and that's the common misconception. Everybody thinks that all of a sudden in the span of 3 months, I said, screw it, I'm out. And I really didn't. I've been thinking about it for about 6 months.
Right.
Because and if you understand the heritage and the history of the city of Stafford Fire Department, when I took over as chief, we were volunteer. We had 52 volunteers, maybe making 3,000 runs a year, maybe 2,800. But 6 months from today, going backwards, we've got career assistant chief, career shift commanders, career training chiefs, career personnel, and I found myself feeling as though I was redundant because I had these other people really, carrying the load and doing what they were doing well. And my job was basically dealing with the politicians and the electeds and, budget and that kind of thing in the administrative function and going to meetings.
Right.
And what finally did it for me was we dropped a box for an apartment fire, and I didn't get up out of my desk or from my desk. And normally I'm racing the shift commander to the bay and jumping in my Tahoe and I'm out.
Right. Right.
And then when they upgraded it, I didn't get up. And then about 2 minutes later, when they went on scene from heavy smoke from a 2-story apartments, I said, okay, I'll go. And I got up and I went that way. And when I got there, I blocked for the supply line until law enforcement got there. And then I moseyed up to the command post. And when I got back in my truck and I was leaving, I was only there maybe 30 minutes. I'm leaving and I'm like, yeah, it's time.
Really?
And because it was, I needed that catalyst. I needed something to slap me in the face. And I didn't get up and go immediately, not because I don't care about the job or love the job, but we have people in a position now to do the job. And I didn't want them to feel that I felt compelled to be there every time. And I would go to fires because I joined the fire department to go to fires, not to take over. Now, if it's screwing up or if it's going downhill, then that's my responsibility. But I very seldom had to do it. I can probably think on one hand in 20 years. And so it's one of those things where, and then I did meet somebody, but that really didn't do it. It was the fact that I really felt that we could collectively have built the organization to the point where our elected officials, the organization, the city, they needed a different voice after 20 years. And I think that it was time. I can look back with a lot of great accomplishments that we did in terms of how far we have come, equipment, rigs, staffing, pay, everything. And when you look at it collectively, when you're dealing with it one at a time, it doesn't seem like you're getting anything done. But when you look back at retrospectively for 20 years, we got a shitload done.
Yeah.
We turned a volunteer department into a career department with top of the line equipment, competitive pay, full-time spot, and so I'm very proud of that. But it was just, I wanted to go out on my terms. I wanted to go out on a high note, and I thought it was best for me to pick the time and not wait for somebody to say, this is the time.
Yeah, well, there's a lot to that, and I it's admirable. What did the transition look like for you when you were working with your next in, the guy Jose, right? I believe you said, who's now chief of the department. Was there a formal transition period, or was it pretty much you guys were on the same page with so many different things because of the way your management style was that it wasn't that difficult of a transition for him?
His office was literally across the hall from mine.
Right.
We were at the dead end of the hallway. And so I walked out of my office. I'm looking at his desk. He walked out of his office. He's looking at mine. And I'll be honest with you, operationally, the dude's a home run.
Yeah.
Administratively is where he has been picking up those roles and responsibilities. And, our mayor was very, when I told him, when I announced went to him and said I intended to retire, A lot of the day-to-day, the administrative stuff, I mean, we were right in the middle of budget. I say middle. Budget was just now spooling up. And so Jose took those bulls by the horn, if you will, all the projects and the funding and all the rest of that. But he's got a very, very good understanding because of how we worked on a day-to-day basis.
That's
so
good.
The transition has been informal at best. It's been text messages and phone calls. And the city did keep me on in a professional services agreement fashion, for a transition should they have gone outside. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'll talk to Jose as a friend and we can banter back and forth and talk about stuff and the evolution. I don't need to be there as some kind of great savior to make sure he doesn't screw things up. He understands the inner workings of the department because he was our first career hire, when he was brought over as our training captain. And so he has helped build that. I said it at my retirement party. My job was to fuel the rocket. He set the trajectory for the rocket. And so by fueling the rocket, mine was budget, parameters, policies, dealing with the politicians, getting things approved. And his was the trajectory of what are our standards, what's our operational values, how are we going to function on the fire ground? And that was his area. And so it's a natural segue. And quite honestly, I hope that his chosen assistant chief that comes up, we've got some good in-house people that I think would be able to integrate right in because they're familiar with our inner workings. And they understand, and everybody's in agreement on what that long-term vision needs to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, shared vision is super important, especially for that trajectory, right? And I think that's really well said. So you got time on your hands now, man. So I know Seaside Consulting has become a full-time gig for you. You are talking and working with so many fire departments across the country. So that's really a lot of what I love talking to you about, right? I mean, I love hearing about your career and what you've been up to, but I'm excited because you're in the trenches every day talking about fire apparatus, whether it's on-site training or consulting on new builds and deliveries or needs assessments, and so on. And that's where I love picking your brain and talking because that's where I learn a lot of stuff too, right? You're doing it every single day and you're getting a lot of feedback from the field as to what's happening, the different manufacturers, the different operational things that you're seeing. So that's really what I love chatting with you about. And so is that what, I guess what I'm asking is that keeping you busy?
Actually, it's pretty funny because I didn't expect to. My goal was always one project or one contract a month. I always said the only real job I ever had was a fire service. And so when I did decide to retire, I wanted to be able to keep my hand in the game, but do it on my schedule. And the irony is that, I find myself, instead of doing 12 projects a year, I think for 2025, I'm on 18 or 19 now. Just because, there's a lot of departments that are reaching out, and it's not because Larry's the greatest. It's just the fact that I like having the conversations. These departments genuinely want information. And whether it's for a hands-on training class, we just did one a couple weeks ago. We've had things going on every week. It's, hey, I want to pick your brain about waterway size on a ladder tower or number of monitors. What do you think about this body configuration? And so there's a lot of that back and forth going on, but that's the beauty of the fire service. But to answer your question, it's been pretty steady, and quite honestly, there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. Just in the next few months, next 6 months. So yeah, I'm really excited. But the good part is I can pick and choose what I want to do.
What do you want to do?
When I say what I want to do, it's doing Seaside. It's doing what I just outlined, but I can do it at my convenience. If Veronica and I decide that we want to go on a month-long vacation to wherever, we're in a position to be able to do that, and I don't have to worry about burning time or anything else. But
no, I get that. Yeah. But I'm talking about what do you want to do with Seaside? Like, what do you enjoy doing with it? Where's that itch scratched for you?
When I see a department that is absolutely scared of their ladder truck, and there's more of those than you would realize, that they are scared to death of, or maybe you realize, and when you leave, the light has been switched on, you can see it, and they're able to demonstrate it, at least in some basic cursory mode, and you see a fire lit to where they actually, at least I believe, that they actually got it and that they're going to become better. And so that's a satisfaction for me.
Yeah. Where does where why do we need to build confidence? Like why are people not confident in where they are right now? I mean, that's kind of scary to me in a way when I hear that, but I also know that you're absolutely 100% correct. When it comes to aerial apparatus, a lot of people are not confident in their own skills and abilities and operating them to the maximum potential they can offer.
The easiest way to describe it and the most succinctly is that the fire service has become a risk averse profession. And so when I say risk averse, I don't mean that in that we should be negligent and flying by the seat of our pants, but we have become so concerned and so burdened down with chief officers, my peers, that lock everything down to the point because they don't want anybody to break something, have it cost money, or it's outside of their comfort zone on how they operated as on the fire ground as a firefighter when they were on the line. And so we lock these down and we build these robot mentalities. And, you know, we wind up having below optimal performance via self-inflicted wounds. Where you've got troops that want to go out there and do good, but you wind up having a substandard performing organization, but only because of yourself. Does that make sense?
It does, but break it down further. Explain.
Leadership of an organization that is either insecure in their own abilities to lead or insecure in their abilities to function on the fire ground themselves, tools in hand, line in hand, saw in hand, whatever, are automatically going to restrict those underneath them because it's either for fear of, I don't want my guys getting hurt, they had a personal bad experience, or it's a lack of understanding the basic job requirements in the first place, or at the end of the day, they don't want to get sued, or they're concerned about image, or quite honestly, then the fourth category is you've got this bailiwick of stuff where you could throw in there. I know of chiefs that don't want the guys starting saws in the morning because they might break. I mean, so you've got this stew of incompetence that all comes together. And what you have is great organizations with great people on the rigs that want to do great things. And they're told no. They're artificially, put on a leash for no good reason other than their leadership is uncomfortable with them doing their basic job. Now, they're okay with the EMS stuff, or they're okay with the training part, but God forbid, we actually let firemen be firemen.
It's so good. I mean, that's why I wanted to push you a little bit on that, because that message just resonates with me times 1,000. I talk about it all the time. It's that no culture, right? And it's based on the lack of confidence.
Those are the guys that get in trouble with culture.
No doubt.
Those guys right there, you know as well as I do. In the absence of culture, one will be created in the vacuum on its own. And if you are not the one that is helping direct, guide, shape, and mold it, you cannot control the culture that comes about. And culture is a two-way street, right? It can be pushed from the top down, or it can organically grow from the company level or the station level up. Yes?
Yes.
So if it's from the top down, you can shape and mold it into the vision and hopefully a shared vision for the organization. But if you bring it from the company level up, command staff can't keep a hold of that all the time. And that's where rifts start to occur. That's where you have your fractures in organizations. And so I think that, culture is a double-edged sword. And but if you're doing things right, the job of fire chief is easy.
I love that. I love that
It's
so
true.
much. There's so much there. I agree with you.
I had 3 jobs. Get the budget approved, funding what we needed for the guys and girls of the organization to do their job. Number 2 was establish the parameters, the policies, the guidelines, whatever, pick your favorite poison for the personnel to operate within. And then the third was, quite honestly, stay out of their way. And then the overarching one is a fourth, if you want to throw a fourth one in there, is back up your people. If your people do right and your people do good, damn the public perception if you know they're doing right. And there's too many organizations that will throw their people under the bus for the sake of getting a problem to go away if they just own it and say, yes, we did it, we're sorry. And I just can't buy into that. I believe in circling the wagons. Tell me the bad news as fast as you would the good news. Be truthful, honest, and upfront, and we'll find a way to deal with it. If you screwed up, own up. That's it. This ain't complicated. You may have to take your licks, but it's better to walk in the door and tell mom and dad now what happened instead of telling them a different story or no story at all and letting mom and dad find out down the street, 2 or 3 weeks later. If that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. I love it. I love your insights, and that's why I love talking with you about this. So let's go down. I mean, we kind of went somewhere where I didn't know we were going to go, but I love it. I want to talk about Seaside. I want to talk about what you're doing with Apparatus. I want to talk about those conversations you're having. Let's instilling confidence into those companies that are looking for it. That's got to be super rewarding for you at the end of a day or 2-day or a weekend, whatever it is, when you leave there knowing that they're in better shape because of the impact that you guys made. You instilled that confidence into them. What does that look like for them? Like, I think that can set a trajectory of just the utmost positivity for their department when they figure out that they can do things for themselves and push themselves to be better.
A good example is, and I've talked about this, or I think this example before, we had the senior chauffeur of a career department, very well-funded career department, middle of the country, mid-America.
Right.
And he absolutely refused to set up one of their brand new twin 100-foot ladder towers on crib stacks. And he was a senior chauffeur. He's like, nope, not doing it. Not safe, not practical, can't do it. You can't show me the engineering behind this. No. Well, finally, we wore him down. And once we got him to the point of slow walking through it, he was our biggest advocate.
Right.
He told all the other chauffeurs, I did it, you do it. And because he had credibility within the organization, they were able to get on board because of, if he did it, I'll do it. And so to see them turn that corner, and when we left, and then the biggest thing is, hell, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we're getting text messages from the department saying that they've bought into the glass and mirrors concept that we pushed, and where a Quint's rolling in first doing a working fire, I think it was in a 2-story, and the engine officer gets on the radio and says, we're 30 seconds behind you, do truck shit. We'll be there in 30 seconds. We'll take care of the engine shit. Instead of the Quint showing up first and trying to do everything. And so it's good to hear a year and a half, 2 years later, that those lessons, and an information imparted is still evolving with a beneficial, impact.
It's cool. Getting the biggest naysayer to buy in. I mean, that is, you want to talk about an infectious attitude or environment, is when the guy that is the biggest naysayer, the biggest voice in the room, and then at the end of the experience is the one that's the biggest cheerleader. That is how you get buy-in across the board. A lot of people aren't willing to cross a guy like that. And so if he's negative, they're negative, right? But if you can turn him, get him interested, get him excited, and bring him along for the ride, that's where the buy-in is. And that's exciting because you're sitting there with $1 million plus piece, $2 million piece sitting out there, and you're not putting it through its maximum potential. That day, eventually, you're going to have to put that truck into manual override, or you're going to have to set up in an area that you're not comfortable setting up in. And if you don't have that buy-in, and you don't get those people willing to put themselves in a position of confident unknown, right? We're probably not going to be able to do the job correctly.
But you know what, though? So much of the American Fire Service has evolved to the point of, well, as long as we do the job okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be right. As long as we do it okay. And nobody got hurt. We didn't damage a rig. I mean, we're sorry we put 24 families on the street, but oops, our bad. That's becoming acceptable.
Right.
At least in certain areas.
Yeah, well, that subpar behavior, that worries me incredibly, because it is more common than I think most people think. And what's interesting is, like, with podcasts and social media and stuff, the people that are out there that are consuming the good stuff, maybe people that would listen to this episode, those are the ones that understand the importance of the standard, not minimum standards, right? And it's getting that message out there that, there are these departments that are literally circling the drain, and they don't bring any value or provide the services that the public demands. And we have to get that message out there that you have an obligation to fulfill that requirement. And I struggle with that so much so. And I can only, yeah, go ahead.
They're window dressing fire departments. You know, our long-term mayor who hired me in the city of Stafford a long time ago, you know, he and I would go round and round because of cost. And he was a big believer in volunteer firemen. We don't need paid firemen, blah, blah, blah. And I told him a long time ago, I said, Mayor, there's two types of fire departments. And he goes, what are those? I said, fire departments that are functional and fire departments that are that in name only. I said, the only difference is the funding levels, at least in our case. But you've got other fire departments that, and this isn't an indictment of the fire service, you know, in certain areas over others, but you've got organizations that just, they exist for the sake of saying they exist. Yes. They're marginal on the fire ground. They're minimally beneficial to the community. But yet, I can guarantee you, most of them have a hell of a tax rate to where they got the greatest, you know, whatever can be built and bought. And again, I'm not perfect. Our organization isn't and wasn't perfect. You just got to want to try. And it can't just be a certain segment of the organization that wants to try. It has to be the entire organization. And if that segment doesn't want to try, then replace that segment. And no matter where it is in the food chain.
So good. So good. So what are you seeing? All right. So other than confidence, let's talk mechanicals. Let's talk operations. Let's talk strategy tactics. What are you seeing out there? You mentioned waterways before. I mentioned tip size to you. And I'm totally like changing topics now and skewing here. I want to get technical for a little bit. I want to talk about like tip size, aerials, the benefits, the pros, the cons, light duty, medium duty, heavy duty. But also, you brought up something that was a really good point. When you start talking about aerials, you have to start with the waterway, right? For the most part?
No, I think and with the exception of the Northeast, and some areas, you know, maybe some concentrations on the West Coast, you know, is everybody's buying pre-pipe waterways. And what you have to do is you have to understand what is the intent of the waterway. You know, NFPA has their minimum standards, blah, blah, blah. But organizationally, what is your goals? And you have to figure that out. And hopefully it's at least generating, specific to the waterway, 1,000 GPM, you know, master stream. And so if that's the case, then you have to understand, okay, what's the easiest way to achieve 1,000 GPM out of our ladder pipe or more, whatever your needs are. But make sure that every component that feeds into another component, that they all mesh to achieve the same goal. Because I've seen projects, I've been asked about projects and brought in on projects where they'll have two 1,500 GPM monitors in a bucket of a platform, you know, and I'm not the greatest at math, but that's 3,000 GPM, but they got a 1,500 GPM waterway. And I'm like, bro, why are we spending all this money here? Or you'll have it matched. You know, Dave Quick always used that attack package, makeup and composition when it comes to hand lines, right? Yes. Well, the same thing applies to a ladder tower or an aerial, in that if your monitor matches the capabilities of the waterway, and if it's equipped to the capabilities of the pump, that's great. But then I've seen it to where the jurisdiction that's buying this doesn't have the water supply to supply it. You know, and I'm talking a hydranted community, and you're like, wait a minute. So we want to do all of this, but yet we never look at our lowest common denominator, and that's always going to be our first failure point. And if you can't get the water out of the ground at the capacity you need, then there's really no point in spending millions of dollars on toys and add-ons and options that you're never going to use. That was long-winded.
No, I like that a lot. That was that's really good. I love the two monitors. You see all these tower ladders with these big ass, you know, two big monitors on there, and you know,
they're not the cheap ones either. They're the full remote control. I mean, expensive.
Yes. And I look at that, and then you think about it, and their waterways only capable of flowing 1,500 GPM, and that's not even outside of the municipal water service. We're hoping we can at least get that to the truck, right? So even just not even thinking about the municipal waterway, just the waterway, the delivery mechanism itself to get the water airborne and out those monitors. I don't understand the misnomer there. I don't know what the thought process or lack thereof. It's kind of numbing to me that departments can do that.
I think what it is that you have a baked-in trust system by municipalities or even taxing entities that their fire departments know what they're talking about when they say they need X amount of money for a fire truck. And that's not an indictment on anybody. I think everybody knows their community and they know what they need. And the devil's in the details, right? As my grandmother would always say. You know what you need. You know what you need to get there. You just don't know how to put it together to get the car to start to get there. And so it's one of those things where we always want to go for the big, the flash, the end product, but we need to understand what we're doing to get to the end product. And if you want 1,000 GPM monitor, okay, great, but then your waterway has to be this, your pump capacity has to be that, and there's such little small adjustments you can make in a spec if you understand them and understand what you're working on that can have consequential life, rig life expectancy benefits but if you don't do them, you hamstring yourself. A good example is on pumpers. How many people will upsize the tank to pump piping, right? NFPA standard minimum is 3-inch. Right? But if you're a blitz attack department and you really want to knock the shit out of something, why don't we upsize that to a 4-inch? It can be done. It's an option.
Sure.
But it's those little things that you have to understand and know and get your manufacturers to include or allow. It's just those little itty bitty things. And I don't think we bought a pumper in Stafford in 20 years that didn't have that on it, just because we saw it as a value add to our rig designs, and it allowed us to avoid that cavitation of the pump, with a greater margin, but also be able to push more water through if we are hitting it with a 2-inch stack tip off the deck gun. So,
how do we do a better job? See, part of my struggle with fire apparatus, custom fire apparatus, right, and I say custom, all apparatus are for the most part. You have options available to you. You have to know what options you need and want, right? And at the end of the day, like, I think about this, and you think about if you're building your home for $1 million, if you're building $1 million home, you don't know all the ins and outs. You have to talk to professionals that are going to help guide you in the process, right? And I think what's really interesting about that is you have to find people that have your interest at heart. And I want to believe that apparatus dealers do, but it's also a business for them as well. And so this is where sometimes the importance of an independent third-party person, a consultant, to help you build and build out your spec and analyze what you need. I think that's important. I've sat on so many truck committees where guys that know nothing about the power plant of the truck, the engine and the transmission, and they're sitting there talking about it like they're experts in it, and those guys don't know jack shit about it other than what they've heard or a comment they've made, or they have, I like Detroit, I like Cummins. Like, this is where I think we have to be careful, right? We're spending a lot of money on a fire apparatus that in a very busy setting could be 5-10 year, in a more rural setting it could be a 30-year purchase or more. We have to be careful of that purchase. And I think those ins and outs, upsizing your tank to pump valve, like, how many departments know that's even an option for them to do? And I guess what I'm getting at, Larry, is like, how do we get that education out there to let people know that they need to be doing a better job of their due diligence in speccing these apparatus?
Okay, well, let's take what you just said a step further. Why, to your point about manufacturers, the dealers should have the customer's best interest in mind with that kind of investment, and especially with its application in public safety. But shouldn't the dealer rep that the department's working with know to tell the customer, hey, look, these are all of the options available? A lot of times you're finding that these manufacturers' reps, whether through an intermediary dealership, a lot of them have never been in the fire service.
Yes.
And then if they have, they themselves are limited in their knowledge. And you wind up, I've seen it. We've been that customer where we're educating the salesman on what we want, and he's saying, no, you can't. And then when he comes back, he's like, oh, hey, yeah, y'all were right. I'm like, why are we even dealing with you? And so you can't just blame the department. Those dealerships and those reps have a responsibility to be completely informed on what their manufacturing capabilities are, their engineering capabilities, and what is an option and available to their customers. Not because it's a profit boost, but they have to be able to accurately and completely tell the customer this is available. And you would want a dealership when you're spending that money to say, hey, look, have you thought about this, guys? Have you thought about that? You know, how many departments, I don't think it's a standard yet, but do an aggressive downshift on their transmissions, right? You know, we do on everything.
Right.
But, you know, it's just what we've always done. But I've seen specs where you're kind of like, wait a minute, why isn't that in there? Or wait a minute, why are you doing this? Why did you buy a wide bucket option when you're the tree capital of the area? You know, I mean, what's the point here? Are we building an amusement park ride, or are we building something for public safety? And so there's so many things that go on, and there's so many failure points between an uninformed client or customer and an uninformed dealer. And I'll be honest with you, I would even go so far as to say as an uninformed manufacturer in some cases, or very restrictive in their thinking.
I can tell you, I think what's exciting for me, though, is getting out and doing a lot of the apparatus innovation content and stuff that we do, trying to raise awareness, how people are building apparatus across the country, sharing those tips, tricks, and hacks. Like, that's what I call it, right? Is like educating people about what's being done. Is even the same manufacturer, but a different dealer, or even the same dealer, but different salesperson might not know, because it's impossible to stay up on the latest and greatest trends, right? Or the latest and greatest, this was done in Texas, I want to do it here. No, we can't do that. The factory's telling me we can't do it. And then we show them a picture and say, no, it can be done. You know, and that is that lack of awareness that I think in such a large network, when you call everything custom, right? It's hard to keep up.
Well, I think that custom gets used for two reasons. I think customers like to think that their apparatus are custom.
Yes.
And I think manufacturers like to use the word custom because they think they can charge more. And so when you get those two things, you've got one person wanting to buy it, another one wanting to sell it. And so, yeah, you're right. And so you've got these, you're never going to know it all. But if you look at it right now, an example, but in a different world, you know, you've got paramedics right now that have these protocols. They're carrying written protocols or on their phone, right? You can't memorize all of the protocols for patient care. Just like you can't memorize NFPA 1900 for fire suppression. So don't be afraid to reference that document to find out, can we do this, can we not? And then that's just the baseline minimum. Then the options and the customization of what works for you, you know, that's what you then want to get with the manufacturer on. And if you've chosen a manufacturer who has good support after the sale, who has that service component that's so crucial, and there's a trust factor, that's a big thing, is that what gets, you can build a fire truck and I buy it from you. It's how you service it after the sale that will determine if I buy another fire truck from Jeremy. And at least most people's thinking. And so you really have to, you know, trust and have a good relationship both ways between a dealership and a customer, just because of the price point. I mean, they're astronomically expensive. And then back to your point about, well, let's bolt on another $30,000, you know, 1,500 GPM monitor to a ladder tower. Well,
Right.
When I went to school, I would rather have two 1,000 GPM monitors from different perspectives on the same fire ground than I would two coming from the same that can't be supplied adequately.
Makes a very good point. I am excited, though, about one thing. I think we have a better educated customer than ever before, though. And I know that so many dealers now, the salespeople walk in and even at their first meeting with a department, that department usually has a lot of their homework done. So I'm excited for that. I'm seeing that there is an uptick in awareness and education by the departments themselves. And a lot of times they're steering the conversation and not letting the dealers steer the conversation, which is good. It's healthy.
I totally agree with you with one caveat.
Do it.
We're a more informed customer base now because it's more readily available. Your apparatus innovations, I look at that. I'm an apparatus geek. I look at that and I'm always going, who the hell thought of that? There's so many good things that, and that you bring out there and you put it out there. So customers now are more educated, but they're educated on what they see in the end device or application or what they want as an option. They don't understand the thinking behind it.
Yes.
That part is still missing because we can want to get a Maryland Light package all day long in Texas, but if it doesn't fit our needs or if there's not a practical reason, we just know how it looks. We don't understand the reasoning behind it. And when you're talking $2 million as a starting point on a 100-foot aerial now, you've got to understand not only how you want it to look at the end, but the reason why it looks the way it looks, because it's still a job-based device that's built to serve a function.
There's a lot to that. I think the mindset is important and understanding it. I think a lot of people, an educated customer is good, but an overly educated customer that doesn't have the theory and mindset behind it is bad.
At best, they're bad. At worst, they're a complete pain in the ass for the dealer to have to deal
100%.
with.
Right.
Because we've all seen those. No, I want this. No, you can't do it.
Right.
Yes, you can.
Right.
And so-and-so department has this. Well, great. Well, did you also know that they were running, X, Y, and Z, configuration? Oh, I didn't know that. No, well, of course you didn't know that.
Right.
Otherwise, you would know that what you want is not realistic. So anyway.
Right. I think it goes hand in hand. It goes hand in hand with the whole, understanding that firefighting is local, right? It's regional to where you are and you operate the way you do because of experience. And over time, you've hopefully perfected or tried to perfect your delivery of services, right? Based upon where you ride.
And that is what we are about. The fire service is about a service delivery. We're about the result, not the process. And the process of, we've got to have this many people, in admin or this many people in support. No, it's about what we do for the community in their time of need when they're having the worst day of their life. What do we do? And it's about that result. And how do we get that result to be as close to perfect as possible and not the process and all the bullshit that comes with it? I couldn't agree with you more. A good example about apparatus. We're the only ones in the area buying 500-gallon tank pumpers now. Because for our operations, it allowed us to get a better design, a lower hose bed, a rapid deployment, because we were able to do it because we have 300-foot hydrant spacing. Our second in company is on top of the first in company in terms of 3 minutes behind the first due is long for us. And then the third, fourth, and fifth are all rolling in, and sixth are all rolling in, within 8 to 9 minutes. We're not quite hitting NFPA, but we're getting pretty damn close in terms of the balance of the first alarm assignment. So for us, a 500-gallon tank allowed us to get a smaller form factor rigs, lower hose bed, and allow us to really do some things. But it wasn't just because we wanted to do it. There was thought that went into it.
Well, I want to ask you this. I want your opinions on this. You bring up tank size. Years and years ago, very common for 500-gallon GPM pumps, right? I mean, it just, that's
500 GPM. You said 500 gallons?
Tanks. 500 gallons in a tank, right? That was a pretty widely accepted standard for a lot of the fire service, right? And as time progressed, it seems like even urban departments are pushing up their tank sizes. Now, you talk about Stafford, where you are. Nope, we held at 500, but you also alluded to that you're one of the onlys that have held to 500. But go ahead.
Well, no, we didn't hold there. We evolved with everybody else to 750s. And so only in this last order has the apparatus committee, with sound reasoning, decided to go back to 500s.
Interesting.
Because they factored in all the impacts. And so we did evolve with that trend, if you will. And there was a window of time where people were really and you remember when the 600-gallon tank got popular for a window of time? It was like, we want 600 gallons of water. Okay, great, cool, whatever. It's just the fire service is not immune to trends, right? It's like right now, tillers are the rage in Texas. Everybody's got to buy a tiller. There's 2 or 3 in order just in my home county. Okay, great. Bro, that is such a conversation over beer to have because the reasoning behind it. But we're not immune to trends, and we can't allow trends to take over common sense. And law enforcement has it, right? Not to pick on our brothers in blue, but let's face it. You remember the day they all went through these evolutionary cycles, right? Everybody had to have pursuit vehicles. Then they all had to have dogs. Then they all had to have TAC teams. And then they all had to have an air support division. It's all of these things. And then what happens? They evolve to the next fad. You're right. And so law enforcement does that for their own purposes. And the fire service does the same thing. But on the tank size, we went back to 500s. And Houston's still at 750s. They were probably one of the last ones to really migrate up. But everybody else is still running 750s, looking at us like we're boneheads for going to 500s. But we still put fire out with it. Probably better than you.
Yeah. Well, my question was going to be for you, right? With the innovation and I guess fads, if you will, but it's not a fad. I guess there's sound reasoning behind it. But I also wonder the difference between quick water delivery today versus yesterday, right? We talk about, when you look at apparatus from years ago when we had a 500-gallon tank before we started migrating to the larger tank size, those apparatus were very simple, scaled down. They were low to begin with, right? Because of just the overall profile of them, right? The evolution of apparatus has just gotten bigger and bigger. When you look at firehouses now compared to where the old, 70s Seagrave was backed in versus a Seagrave today or a Pierce today or whatever, whatever brand, insert whatever brand. Apparatus just inherently have gotten so much bigger in their profile and footprint. And I just wonder if that's really where we need to be and what we want and need. I find, I was looking at an engine the other day and it was in a urban department and they decided to go with, they made some choices on compartmentation, which allowed for more compartmentation than they needed. And now they got 2.5 compartments on that engine completely empty. And the guy says to me, well, he goes, we'll never fill it because our engine companies, this is the work we do and this is the standardized equipment we carry. Yes. Well, we might have to carry something else like ballistic vests and helmets. Well, we already do, and we put them in the cab and this and that. But what he was getting at was, he's like, we're not going to evolve over the next 7 years of this engine to fill the rest of these cabinets unless we just decide to start throwing more shit on. But the more shit we throw on changes what our delivery of service might be, because now where we were focused, we might not be, right? And so I find it's a really interesting dichotomy, if you will, of the way it was versus the way it is, and why are we doing that? And I just, it frustrates me at times because if you know the operation of your apparatus, you know the equipment that needs to be carried, and you know the job function of the apparatus, build something that suits that, and it doesn't need to be more than that, right? Am I wrong with that?
No, and you're not. But also having 2.5 compartments unused, okay, that's a little on the extreme side. Ideally, I've always been a fan of, you want to have some room for growth, right? Is you want to be able to pick up something that if you need to put on the rig, you can, but not an entire 2.5 empty compartments. I mean, you've got to have some margin for, adjustment and growth, but not to the point where it's that extreme. Because then if you're adding 2.5 compartments or 2 compartments, one per side, you're either increasing the length, the wheelbase, the height. You're impacting the dimension somewhere unnecessarily that
Correct.
could be better spent for access or, ability to get in, into tighter places. So, yeah.
You froze up. I apologize. I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden the internet is I don't know what's going on. So I agree with you. And I look at what they did was they pushed up to 3/4 high side with a ladder rack above it instead of going lower compartments. Right. So it's there's trade-offs with everything in an apparatus. And I look at that and I go, man, bigger's not always better. Right. I believe that. And I think it's admirable that you guys, where you're from, know how you operate and you design that apparatus specific to how they operate. I think that's incredibly important. I think we lose track of that at times.
Could not agree more because, it has to be built for you. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's so much in apparatus specifications. It's always about, well, we got to keep up with so-and-so because they bought an aerial scope 2 towns over. So, and they got a 75. We got to get a 95. Wait a minute. Why? Well, because they have a 75, and I'm just using that as a hypothetical. But we get so caught up into that things need to fit our needs for our community. I know departments that literally spec apparatus because of their auto aid runs to a neighboring jurisdiction. My responsibility is to my citizens and my government, and when I say that, our city and our tax dollars, to have the best impact possible for our community. If there's a value add for a neighboring jurisdiction, we're all in. But I'm not going to spend extra money or increase operational costs for a rig for 2 towns over because we may go there 20 times a year.
Yeah, great point.
And you do see that. And you do see that quite a bit.
Oh, 100%, right? And that's the thing that drives me bananas. And if they want you to design it for them, that's great, but they better foot the bill for you then.
You got that right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I know a department that did that. Well, and we went to a 1,250-gallon tank because we go auto 8 a lot. And I'm like, but you're a hydranted city. They're like, yeah, but we go out into the county a lot. So let the county pay for it then.
Yeah.
It's those little things, and you're going to see a lot more of that. You're going to see a lot more of that pushback as budgets become even more restricted, as apparatus costs continue to go up, staffing is more limited. All of these things have to fit in a certain size shoebox and still have that service delivery you mentioned at the end of the pipe.
Yeah.
Are we good at putting fires out and treating our people when they're sick and hurt? That's it. That's it.
It is so simple, yet we fuck it up like crazy.
But we go out of our way because there's a component in our job that likes to reinvent shit. We like to reinvent shit just to put our name on it, give it a different name or different acronym, and sell more books or whatever else we want to do. And it is ridiculous.
I just posted a picture the other day on social of, I'm going to actually look it up right now because I don't know if I have a picture of what year it is. I might. But I posted a picture of a Han the other day, a Han engine, this cream-colored Han engine. I didn't get a picture of the tag, so I don't know what year it is. But it is this beautiful, I mean, look at this. I think Hans are one of my most favorite apparatus, right? Look
I didn't
at
see
this,
that yet.
right? Let me scroll.
Didn't you post a purse chiller the other day?
Look at that beauty, right? Now look at...
Yeah.
Look at
Hey, Hans served the city of Camden well.
Look at that.
I agree.
Why aren't we building apparatus like that anymore? Like, we all want low hose beds. That thing is as low as it gets. It goes to the frame rail, for God's sakes, right? I mean, and it's low sides, and it's, I just, when you think about where we are, I want to impress upon people to think back to nostalgia and the days of yesterday and how simple things were. And that apparatus put out probably more fire than your custom fire apparatus is today. And they did it just fine. Just fine.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. But now from the pump panel back, why change it? Now
that's right.
And
that's
now
right.
The cab going forward, we all know why things have to change. Open jump seats are, all the usual. We got firemen that have to have air conditioning now. Which I was one of them. But we keep reinventing the wheel for the sake of reinventing the wheel without a need to reinvent the wheel. A lot of times.
And that's my point. When you look at the simplicity, trends come and go, and a lot of times we circle back around. And you look at the engine company today, man, there are some incredible engines being built that are built solely for function, right? I just saw an engine the other day that has literally 10 pre-connects on it, 2 off the front bumper, 3 off the side, 7 off the rear. I'm like, what? It's over the top. It's over the top.
But operationally, is there a need for it?
I don't know. I don't think there's. How many lines are you stretching off your first due? How many lines are you truly stretching off your first due?
On average, I would have to say the maximum number in my time there, maybe 4.
Yeah, I've never pumped more than 4 lines off my engine. Never. In 30 years.
I pumped a deck gun, 3, 4, a deck gun and 4, and then I had to shut the deck gun down to supply ladder pipe. Back when I was a pumper chauffeur in Houston. But you're right, because think about it. Then we get into an operational, dynamic of, so we're going to hinge all of our operational success on one fire truck and one water supply. If I need to go to a 5, 6, or 5th, 6th, and 7th line, I probably need to be on another pumper on another water supply, because you don't want one mechanical, a blown hose, something, an alternator going out to take down your entire fireground, operations.
I posted Yeah, I know. I don't know what's going on, man. I don't know if it's you, it's me. Like the connection seems to be getting funky.
Oh,
So
it's definitely you.
definitely me. Definitely. I posted a short video a couple weeks ago of a 5-inch line coming into the master intake, and it was cavitating, and the hose was sucking in on itself. And you should see the comments. I mean, that video got hundreds of thousands of plays and thousands of comments, and and so on. And what's fun about that is I didn't tell anyone. I put the comment for it. All it was balance. I put is the comment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here, I'm going to show you this because it cracks me up, man. It absolutely cracks me up. So this video got let's see here. Where is it? I got to scale back a little bit. It's a couple weeks ago.
Was it the one where they had sucked all the residual out of it?
Yeah. So it's this one right here. Right? I don't know if you saw this one or not, right?
I did.
That's my engine and I'm pumping.
Right.
And I had yeah, go ahead.
Let me guess. You're an idiot. You should never get below 30 PSI residual. How dare you do that?
Oh my God. I was getting lit. The comments are amazing. Absolutely amazing. That fire, I was toggling back. Like if the guys weren't using their line, I was shutting them down and opening another. I mean, this was a large fire with heavy fire volume. I'm feeding 2 ladder pipes. I got multiple. I mean, I am maxed beyond maxed, and the closest hydrant, and that hydrant was being assisted by an engine. We should have had probably another engine in the works, but by then we weren't shutting it down, so we were probably going to have to lay another line. I think they did end up laying another line from a couple more blocks away, right? But that was in the initial stages. I'm pumping a lot. I'm moving a lot of water. People were losing their fucking minds over that video because that line, they're like, oh my God, like you got to keep residual. You got to do this. You got to do that. Bro.
Yeah. I mean, and that would be the perfect caption to put. Tell me you know how to be a pumper chauffeur without telling me you know how to be a pumper chauffeur. Because that picture right there, I mean, if you can do that with success, it's not an everyday thing. But too many times,
man.
All this book crap of you got to keep 30 PSI residual or 10 and don't go below this. I can't tell you how many fires I pumped on where I was hoping to God it stayed at 0. Because
that's right.
You don't want to be that guy. And that was a big thing in the Houston Fire Department. When you were on the pump panel, if a chief came up and said, can you take another line? You had to be able to say right then and there, yes or no.
Absolutely.
And there were times where if I was at 20 and I took another line and it dropped me to 10 and a chief came up and said, Larry, can you take another line? My answer was like, yep. And he took another line. And I hope to God that the drop at least kept me in a neutral plane because, you didn't want to be that guy because you know what happens then? He doesn't know how to drive. He doesn't know how to pump. And it's a reputational thing. And then, but there's too many times now where we think that all of this stuff we see in writing is gospel. It's like fire academies, How many times have you heard somebody say, prepare to raise on the fire ground? It doesn't happen.
Man, it's hilarious. Yeah. It's hilarious. And what's crazy to me is how some people form their opinions based solely on that and not experience, and that's what's wild. Absolutely. When you look at people's comments, like especially me in the weeds with social media, like I learned long ago, like you can't entertain the craziness in that feed. Like you just can't. It's going to take on its own life. Kind of like you said before, if there's no culture, a culture will be formed and you can't control it, right? And it's the same way on social media when people see something, they go, if it's something they don't believe in or they need to let you know their own thoughts and ideas because everybody's opinion matters. It's so much fun when you should see some of my content in the comments that are being made. And you can just fucking tell that these people are coming from a place of never having to do it and they've never been kicked in the teeth on the fire ground, ever.
Absolutely.
Ever.
They've never been on the fire ground where they've got lines off, where they're in on tank water, and it's a balancing act of guys, you either got to put it out or get out, and you're 100%. On the radio,
Yes.
And you've got to have those radio. We were the king of informal radio traffic in Southwest Houston. We'd go in on tank water and shit. Anyway, and they're up there with 2 apartments on fire, and I'm on the radio and I'm saying, Russell, I'm down to a quarter. Let's go.
Yes.
And the chief pulls up and he's like, why are you and Russell sounding like this? I'm like, well, because I need a line, chief, and the second in ain't here yet. And he's like, fuck.
That night.
Those things. Yeah. But you know what, though? To me, that, especially for a young guy, you have a young guy that gets through that the first time, that is such a confidence builder for them. It is. No doubt. And I'm not saying that we want to operate on the margins, because obviously not. But the first time it happens, they walk away with a little bit more pep in their step and a little bit more, I'm not going to say swagger, but a little bit more confidence in their abilities to, deal with the curveballs as they come up, because no fire ground is perfect. We hit the same hydrant, I kid you not, on an apartment fire. Same day, 8 hours later, we tried to hit the same plug, dead. But those are the curveballs I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
In the minute you assume, shit's going to go sideways.
I wish I had like 4 or 5 of the young guys with me that night, where they could have watched and been a part of that balancing act, because I was literally gating one guy down to give another guy more. The other guy need more. I gate down something else. Like, it was literally, I'm running cheater lines to engines that are parked on the fire ground to just get a little bit more water, that have tank water. I was doing everything possible to keep water coming in this rig to feed what I was feeding. And I'm telling you right now, like, that fire to me was like a defining moment in my skills at the panel. And I was like, fuck, man, like, this one put me to the test. It was so much fun. Like, I love that shit,
Absolutely.
bro. I love the game. I love the game.
Exactly. Because you're professional enough to see it as a challenge of, I can't let my guys down. We have a goal. We have to meet these objectives. I've got to do my part to make sure they're successful. And I guarantee you, I'm going to take a guess and say you figured out, well, you already know, but I'm assuming you were using your 2.5-inch auxiliary intake also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
that's where my
people have no idea. No idea.
That's where my cheat was coming from other apparatus. I was running a 3-inch line to every apparatus on scene in between gating up and gating down. Hell
yeah. And when you said cheat lines, I figured you're using your auxiliary intake too, because at that point, I don't care how I'm getting water in this rig. I just need to get water in this rig.
That's right. That's right.
But you know how many people don't even know to use a 2.5-inch auxiliary intake? Or better yet, how many rigs don't even have them?
That's how we fill our tanks every time we get back or on the road. We teach our guys that all the time, and that's how we maximize our water supply, especially with the large square footage that I deal with on a regular basis. We need that water, and some of our areas is limited. And we're not afraid to lay hose. It's not unheard of to lay 3,000 feet of 5-inch with a relay to get you the water you need. Yeah, tell me about it.
God, if we had to put more than 400 feet on the ground, maybe 500 in an apartment complex in Southwest Houston, we were like, Jesus Christ, hold the box. We got all this hose to pick up. And now, and in Stafford, worst case is 300 feet between hydrants. So the most you were putting on the ground is 200 feet. We're
Must
good.
Be nice.
I was very spoiled. I was very, very spoiled to a hydrant water system. Because this tanker shuttle shit, when we go to the other side of the county, I'm like, hey, can you take water supply? I'm like, bro, I ain't the one. I said,
I'm the guy with the 500-gallon tanks. You don't want me.
That's right. You want me to take safety? I got it. You want me to take Charlie Division? Good. Not water supply, bro. It's not my forte.
What's next for you? What do you got? What's coming up? Anything exciting?
Man, we're supposed to. You're going to be at the Joey D, yeah?
Yeah, I'll be there in November. Yes.
Yep. Be there doing aerial stuff, and then before that, I'm supposed to be at the Massachusetts State Fire Academy as part of their officer development program.
That worked out.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So I was supposed to be up there the week before Joey D. As part of that, it's a new class that I've been putting together for about 6 or 8 months now, and they asked to be the first ones, and so we're going to present that, and that's the 6.
You got to give me that date. You got to give me that date. I'd love to sneak in that room. So,
yeah, in the class I'm excited about. I put a lot of time and effort into it. It's the 6 characteristics of a dysfunctional truck company.
Perfect.
And identifying what those are, what the usual culprits are, if you will, and the corrective action and what can be done to address those. And I think too many times we
awesome.
label companies.
That's good. I'm excited to hear that.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Acceptable. Useless.
Well, there you are.
And
you cut out again.
We do. Oh, excellent. Okay. Acceptable and useless, but yet we don't truly drill down to find out what the problem is. And in particular on trucks, how many times do you see trucks still, aerials are in the cradle, and yet guys are, throwing a 35 and then a roof ladder to get up there when the aerial could have made it in 30 seconds. So it's all those things, and it comes down to the usual problems. And so, yeah, we're going to do that up there in November, and then the Joey D. And then in December, we've got quite a bit going on with some new delivery operational training for departments that are getting their first towers that we're doing. Looking forward to that because these guys are really hyped about their new rigs. And then January, I'll be out in El Paso for that conference that they're doing, Southwest Fire Conference in El Paso. So, and then after that, I don't even know what's going on, but things are starting to fill up.
I love it.
I have no complaints. Very blessed.
Well, I'm glad things are going well for you, right? So, deservedly so. So I wish you continued success. Congratulations on retirement. Enjoy a little bit of downtime, I hope. You mentioned maybe taking a month off one of these times to vacation. Yeah, go do it, man. Enjoy it.
Oh, well, and we're not going to take a month, but yeah. And,
I know that.
And I got to go see a Premier League soccer match. I've gotten kind of addicted to that, so we're going to go see one of those in November too. So over to England. So yeah, other than that, no, man, life is good, and I appreciate you. I know that my phone always rings whenever you have absolutely nobody else to talk to. So
that is 100% correct,
I know.
And so
yeah, and actually I was driving back home yesterday on the road, and I listened to that Scrap podcast of you and I for the first time, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I was number 10 on the list. I was like,
Did you hear the ding? Did you hear the dinging going on the whole fucking time?
Yes, I heard the dinging. Jesus Christ. Okay, I get it.
I had to talk to you like a child. I had to walk you through how to turn it off. So somebody had to take you by the horns.
I think if I ever get into merchandising, I'm just going to put that on the back of the Seaside shirts. It's just going to say ding.
Ding. It's good.
We ought to trademark this shit.
I think it's a good way to sum this up, man. So thank you for joining me. I'm glad things are going well for you. And, you always have a home here. You know that. So thanks, bro. Appreciate you.
All right, brother.
All right. Don't go anywhere. Stay right here. I got to talk to you about something. So hang on one sec. I'm going to sign off. Come right back to you.
All right.
Guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the National Fire Radio Podcast. Larry DiCamillo, Seaside Consulting. You can find him online on social. Send him a holler if you're interested in anything apparatus. He's your guy to go to. For me, well, just hang on and listen to what we talk about, and I appreciate that more than you know. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you at the next one. And like I say at the end of every single episode, take this conversation, take it back to the firehouse, and talk about it. Because when we're talking about the job, we're making the job better. I'll see you at the next one. Jeremy, National Fire Radio.
National Fire Radio.